Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the showdown between Norsca, led by THROGG the Troll King, and the Tomb Kings, who are going to be led by Settra the Imperishable. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So in my front line, I do think I have an entire front line of actually Marauder Champions. So Marauder Champions here, looks like, yeah, that's pretty much my entire front line, which I think are very good against the Tomb Kings. Because number one, you don't really need heavy armor-piercing damage against the Tomb Kings. These guys have pretty good stats. High leadership, they have 80 armor, which is going to be good against Tomb Guard, Nehekar Warriors, Skeleton Warriors, pretty much all of those Tomb King's infantry, which really struggle against armor. And on top of that, they have 55 melee defense, so obviously the Tomb King's infantries will struggle kind of getting through their armor and melee defense. And on top of that, they're going to get enraged. So this is a mechanic for any of you guys who haven't seen it that is only available to Norsca. So if you're playing as the Warriors of Chaos, for example, their Marauders actually do not have this ability, but as they fight for periods of 45 seconds, they get increasing buffs of leadership, physical resist, as well as melee attacks. So definitely some good stuff, especially considering the Tomb King's matchup can be pretty grindy. On the far side, we do have the Icehorn Marauders. So these are the RORs, and I just kind of thought they were worth it. They do have low armor, but their stats are pretty good at 4139, and they do have perfect vigor, and they also look really cool. So makes the match a little bit more entertaining to watch. On top of that, we got a Big Daddy THROGG here. So THROGG is obviously pretty much the go-to choice against the Tomb Kings. Wulfric, could be good, and Wulfric's pretty much good in every matchup, but THROGG is just really going to be a specialist here because of the construct. So if they have a, Settra on a horse, they have Scorpions and Necrosphinxes, Ushabti, which inevitably are going to be summoned, THROGG is definitely going to be the best since he has a really good AP and bonus versus large, and, Frostbite never hurts. So the one thing you have to watch out for with THROGG, I suppose, is like heavy bowfire, because Wulfric does have a shield and THROGG does not, and he's so big that you can't really hide him amongst your infantry, but I still think he's worth it. We got Famir Balefiend with Lore of Fire, so Flaming Sword, Burning Skull, Cascading Fire Cloak, all kinds of good stuff going on there. And guys, we have the Miststalkers. So the Miststalkers I feel like are pretty cool, because with Tomb Kings, you're probably going to be running into, maybe the Blessed Legion of Fakh that you might be running into, or Demonetization as we call them. You may be also running into Ushabti Great Bows, and what's really cool about Miststalkers and Famir in general is I don't know, do these ones have stock? I don't think these guys do. Yeah, but the other ones do have stock, which is really cool, which means they're not going to be taking fire before they get to the front line. Hence, they're most of the time going to be allowed to, generate the value you want them to. On top of that, we got Marauder Hunters with Javelins. We got a group of Spears here, and a regular group of Famir with Great Weapons, which are going to be really essential against constructs and big scary monsters. And for my opponent's army, he's got some Necropolis Knights with Halberds, probably to deal with like Skin Wolves or Famir, things like that, just apply some pressure. What's really cool about these bad boys is they do have poison, which is always pretty useful. He has Nehekar Warriors, Skeleton Warriors, or actually Tomb Guard. So it looks like his front line is going to be relatively elite by Tomb Guard standards. He's got the Nehekar Warriors, he's got the Tomb Guard. So yeah, it's going to be, I'm really glad, I was happy I brought champions actually. The champions should be able to beat pretty much everything in the front line with the exception of the Kepra Guard. He does have the Necropolis Knights, a couple of groups of Skeleton Archers, the Blessed Legion of Fakh here, or Demonetization as we call it. We have those guys and those guys here. He's got some King that catches Scorpion Legion in the back, which are one of those units that are pretty much always worth bringing as like a backline defensive tool. They're just so cost effective. Pretty good melee defense at 46, anti-large. They also apply poison, and of course they're unbreakable being a Tomb King's unit, so a very, very good backline defender there. He has two Tomb Princes, which I really like quite a bit, and also Settra. So they're all on foot. So THROGG's bonus versus large is not going to matter against these guys, which is going to make it really tough, especially considering Settra can give it right back to him with his bonus versus large. So that's going to be, I like this pick for my opponent. He's got a very kind of defensive army with a little bit of, support on the flanks, but for the most part, it's going to be a tough cookie to crack. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Right now, I'm just advancing up the hill, getting my Marauder champs, just taking note of my opponent's army, analyzing all of his units. And I do see these Necropolis Knights here. So what I'm going to be doing is trying to get my Famir, even the Miststalkers, if they're supported by Marauders, they'll do very well against, the Necropolis Knights, even though they're not the anti-large variant. But the Spears are also going to go out there and try and take those guys out. But here comes a heavy firing line just going into the champs, who do have the shield, which is really nice. So they're going to charge right into these Tomb Guard here in the front line, which is going to be pretty good for my Marauder champions, like I said. Let's actually look at a stat comparison. So 36, 53, 39 to 37, 46, 42. So yeah, it could be a bit of an even engagement, I suppose, but my guys, of course, are going to get that enrage, which maybe will turn the tide. I don't know. I have to do some testing. Anyways, in the back, I do get a Burning Skull, so you can see the Burning Skull just coming right down the formation of these Skeleton Archers, the Blessed Legion. I don't know if I missed a little bit, but it didn't seem to do as much damage as I thought it would. Maybe he was able to move, but yeah, at the end of the day, that probably didn't do that much damage. But it does also get the Scorpion Legion a little bit, so I could have sworn that went like right over it. So he does a nice charge in the front line with the Necropolis Knights, right into some of my Marauder champs, and of course they do have AP, so that's going to be good. But here, this is a good situation for me. So the Famir are engaged in the front, the Miststalkers. You can see they're kind of just fighting and clubbing some of these Tomb Guard, but I do have the Javelins fighting and some Marauders swarming them. And as you guys know, Demogryph Knights, basically Halberd Cav, things like this aren't really meant to be in sustained combat versus like infantry units. So they bum rush through, they get on my Javelins, which was a little bit tough. And I did have these guys in auxiliary, but I unfortunately kept them too far back. I wanted to like have them right here. So they're going to be rushing over to deal with those Necropolis Knights, and hopefully they'll be able to reach. In the back, my opponent does the same thing to my second group of Marauder Javelins, but not before I get a ton of damage on these guys, because they only have 80 armor, I think. They don't have any sort of like, oh, I guess it's 90, so that's pretty good. But still, these Javelins do really well against pretty much anything large. Over here, the Iceworm Marauders, as well as the Champions, have put a bit of a dent in the Nehekar Warriors, but for the most part, the frontline engagement's a bit of a wash. It's really even. But some Marauders of mine do get around the outside and are able to chase down the Skeleton Archers, which is huge. Obviously, they are faster than Skeletons. Another Burning Skull is going to be coming in, so everyone likes the Burning Skull. So that's going to go right over those Archers, and I think that one actually did a lot of damage. Yes, it did, against the Blessed Legion. So pretty good grab there. It also goes into the back of the Nehekar Warriors, maybe roast some of my Marauders, but I should be able to win this fight here, I think. So the Javelins are back online. Looks like he's doing some cycle charging between the two units, and THROGG is also taking a lot of firepower. This is a very nasty Tomb King's Glob. You can see Cetra, he's got the Tomb Princes, some elite infantry. But the one thing I have going for me is I have a ton of Famir left. I have the Miststalkers, 12 of them, so I think what I was doing with them is getting them up and around the back and like trying to glide into the rear of the Tomb Prince and stuff. Also have my Famir with great weapons who have been doing a pretty good job kind of screening these guys out. And you can see the Famir can just really club these guys down as they, especially with THROGG. THROGG kind of like scampers, you know, he doesn't like run normally. It's a bit of a scamper for sure, but I think he's going to throw up right here. Not sure if he was feeling it, but those Javelins just providing incremental value over the course of the whole game, just peppering down these Necropolis Knights. Definitely very happy with their performance so far. But the fight is still on here. The Famir, the Miststalkers have pushed in here, and it looks like there's a couple Tomb Guard holding, but the Famir are really going to crush those guys. These are basically the anti-infantry variant. Yeah, you can see the double-handed overhand club right there from this guy. But they have Fight or Die from THROGG, and you can see that the Tomb King's infantry are just getting massacred, and they're pretty much all gone now. They crumbled there. There are some the Kepler Guard coming in, which are going to be tough to deal with, but I have a pretty good little surround right here on some of these Tomb Princes. THROGG is also in here with the Fight or Die, like I said, and we're getting some pretty healthy progress on Cetra, as well as these two Tomb Princes here, but the bounce power is still very even. In the back, the Marauder Hunters are just throwing their Olympic javelin arms right into these Necropolis Knights, doing a pretty good job just kind of bringing them down. And I really like playing with these guys in Norsca. I think they're pretty good in most matchups here. So we're able to pepper those guys down. They're at 7 leadership. I have some spears coming in as well, which I can easily use to screen them. But I actually went in with THROGG for a second. My opponent used the Incantation of Desiccation, lowering my melee attack and melee defense. So I really took a huge beating here. So at this point, I don't know, I guess THROGG had to throw up. That probably wasn't a good idea. But anyways, he throws up a little bit just to kind of, set the mood on Cetra the Imperishable here. And I'm just kind of trying to wear them down with the Famir and my infantry before I commit THROGG and also let him heal up a little bit. The Kepler Guard are taking some work from the Miststalkers, who are pretty much designed to kill such units. We're getting in there a little bit, but the Kepler Guard getting a Realm of Souls, it looks like, and they're getting some fat, juicy healing from that. In the back, it looks like the Iceworm Marauders, are actually just Marauder Champions, are able to chase off the Blessed Legion. Because this, group of 28 Marauders right here could probably kill this entire Blessed Legion, which would be really, really solid. So if they were like shooting at my Miststalkers right now and my Famir and other things like that, that would just be catastrophic. So the fact that I'm able to chase them is huge. Here we have a similar situation, Champs fighting Tomb Guards. In the back, it looks like it's just kind of a free-for-all, but some of my opponent's Cav units, these Necropolis Knights, are coming in and getting a charge on my Javelins, which was a very good choice for my opponent here. He's able to kind of, chase those guys off, and it looks like 43 models here. This group looks like they have 35, so it's still a fairly healthy portion, but once he breaks them, he charges back in. Personally, I don't know, maybe he should have chased those guys off, because they're simply going to rally and come back in and apply some pressure. THROGG's also in pretty good shape, but it's really tough to kill these Tomb Princes, and now all of their curses are going off. So Tomb Princes, when they get low, apply curses. Each of them does different things, like armor. Some of them do melee attack and rampage. Yeah, you can like barely see the Tomb Princes. They're like straight up just, oh, look at THROGG. Look how angry he looks. So he's got those guys surrounded. The Tomb Princes here are pretty close to crumbling, I would imagine. It looks like they're at 16 leadership and 30. Just kind of holding, and just with the support of the Kepler Guard now for collapsing my flank. You can see they're just pushing in. My Marauder Champs are starting to get a little bit wary here. The Famir are wavering and shaken. And also it looks like he got his Ushabti summon. So all of a sudden there's like just a huge onslaught of these Tomb King's units. Yeah, it looks like he may have done the Ushabti summon a minute ago. But now the Javelins are back online. They're going to start peppering in and just taking out these Necropolis Knights, going after some of the Ushabti. And these guys are just throwing for the Chaos Gods here, having a good old time. And THROGG, I've just been cycle charging in and out because I don't want to let like the Tomb Princes and Cetra get a nice steady engagement on him since they're on foot. I want them to get mucked up with infantry. I want them to be fighting my Miststalkers and my Famir and all those guys, and just really kind of struggling with them rather than getting a straight conflict on THROGG. who can push through troops and retaliate quicker than they can. So right now you can see that some of his cav are getting taken out by the javelins. They're just kind of peppering in there and taking out the large targets. And now it's pretty much just small stuff. Netcar Warriors, the Kepler Guard have 47 models. My Famir did break, but they still have 6 models themselves, so they can come back in. And THROGG just with a power slam right there, just straight up Attitude Era WWE stuff going on. But right here we got the Marauder Champs who took out the Blessed Legion like I predicted. He's got some Skeleton Spears coming back, but I should be able to intercept those guys before they make a big impact here. So THROGG is just basically going to just go to Pound Town here on this last Tomb Prince, who pretty strong in his own right, but you can see that he's very low. -19 leadership. He's surrounded by Famir, and just even though it looks like he might have just gotten he just got clubbed by THROGG, pretty good right there. But that's pretty much going to be it at this point. It's mostly cleanup, but very well played to my opponent. That was a ferocious one, and it was quite a bit of fun. So let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown and kind of see what was going on. So champions, by far, I think the best choice in the front line. Famir would have handled constructs, I think. So I think this build's pretty safe against most Tomb King's builds. Yes, of course, the Tomb King could come up with a counter build and be able to stomp it pretty easily. But I think if you're just to go onto ladder and face off against a random Tomb King's player, and they're going to be bring their usual build, I feel like this build would have a fighting chance. The champions are really solid. The javelins give you great utility. Famir and THROGG can take out large threats, and yeah. The one thing I might change is I would add cut maybe the Ice Arm Rod or the Ice Arm Marauders, or cut something and get maybe even the Spearmen. They didn't really do much. I guess they were protecting the javelins against Cav, but maybe just get a couple Hounds or the Norscan Ice Hounds just to be able to pressure Tomb King's archers and skirmishers and things like that, because I felt a little bit bare bones in that respect. But anyways, very well played to my opponent, Ama, King of the Dead. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this THROGG versus Tomb King's battle. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.